Vivek Kaju, is that the way forward for diplomats now to work behind the scenes? Because, we are getting these responses from Trudeau now before his own parliament where he's going for India again. He's making it very clear that he is someone who's not going to back off.
Trudeau has made it very political. And that's unwise, because in interstate issues of this nature, it is best, they are best resolved diplomatically.
But Trudeau, he says he's provided evidence to India at past summits, including at G20. He claims that even at the end of the G20 summit, those pictures you're seeing last year, he provided information or intel that the Canadians had.
Rajdeep, let us distinguish between evidence and intel. Mm-hmm. Intel is not evidence. Evidence is something that is sustainable in a court of law. And intel is seldom used in a court of law. So what India is telling him, I think, is that provide us with something that will stand up in your court of laws. That he has not done. Instead, what has he done? In my diplomatic experience, never has a head of mission been declared as a person of interest, and that another state wants his diplomatic immunity to be lifted. Mm-hmm. Which means that Canada wanted that the Indian High Commissioner should no longer be High Commissioner, that he should be treated like an ordinary person of interest. Now, there is no legal term, I believe, which defines a person of interest. It means that someone who may have some knowledge and that he's someone who is to be quizzed. Never is this done. So they've crossed many red lines.
Have we also, but Mr. Kaju, they've crossed red lines. That's taken. Should we also be introspecting as to how we've handled it? We claim that we want to be a global superpower. Global superpowers do not go around the world using gangsters allegedly like Lawrence Bishnoi or Goldie Brar to take out anyone.
Rajdeep, I'm not for one moment saying that what India has done in this case, I do not know as a private citizen, I'm not aware. But let us not talk of what global superpowers do to protect their interests. Mm-hmm. The Western democracies, and I say this with all responsibility, are the first to push freedom, fundamental freedoms, civil rights, international law. When their own security interests are threatened, mm-hmm. they leave these notions far behind. History, I wrote in my article today, history is littered with such examples. So let us not talk of these double
you make an excellent point.
That Western democracies.
You make an excellent point there, which I think Michael Kugelman, Western democracies, particularly the United States, also want to protect their national interests. India chooses to protect national interests. We can argue about the means adopted, but the fact is that you've got Khalistani extremists who are being patronized under the name of freedom of speech, and therefore if India stands up for what it believes its national interests, why is the US in a tizzy? Why is Canada in a tizzy?
Well, I wouldn't say that the U.S. is in a tizzy. I think that it's actually been quite restrained in its public messaging about what Canada's dealing with and what the U.S. has been dealing with. But no, look, I acknowledge the point made, the critique made about Western democracies, and I know that many observers have cited a number of examples of the U.S. engaging in what one could describe as extrajudicial killings. Whether you're talking about the Trump administration's decision to take out Soleimani in Iran, or the decision to take out bin Laden in Pakistan. One could argue that you could make some distinguish between those cases, but sure, I take that. But look, at the end of the day, these are close partners, right? I mean, India and the U.S. are close strategic partners. India and Canada had been close strategic partners for quite some time, and I think the concern is that you have, Canada and the U.S. are very concerned that the U.S. that the U.S. and Canada are very concerned that India has carried out activities like this that one would not expect from a country that is, a close partner, an intelligence partner, and so on. And in the Canadian case, whether you agree or not with the latest allegations that Canada has put out there, these are extremely serious. And I think you had referenced this before, Rajdeep. I mean, even the allegation that senior Indian diplomats in Canada are actually involved in some type of criminal racket. I mean, that's extremely serious. Absolutely. It's important to carry out in investigation, to carry it out, to see the evidence and figure out what really is going on. But I really don't think that Canada's government at the highest levels would make these allegations unless it, had something to base them on. Let's be very clear about that.
Okay, I just have a minute. I don't know whether Mr. Miliuski is still with us, but I just wanted to get a response as to where does this go, Mr. Miliuski, now? How far will Canada stretch it according to you, or is all dependent on who wins the elections now in Canada?
Well, Trudeau is all in, and I think whoever takes over from Trudeau, if he does, as expected, lose the next election next year, whoever takes over as Prime Minister is going to face the same problem. Is it okay for India to run around taking out its enemies on Canadian soil? Is there a Prime Minister available in Canada waiting who's going to say, I don't care. If India wants to come here and kill its enemies, that's fine. I mean, one dead terrorist, who cares? I don't think that there's a Canadian Prime Minister in the wings who is going to take that attitude. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
So India is facing a real problem. Evidence. Yeah, they can say until they're blue in the face that there's no evidence, but there are trials coming. November the 4th, the trial of the suspects in the assassination of Rupert Singh Malik, the Air India suspect. And then after that, there'll be a trial in New York of Nikhil Gupta, accused of handling a murder for hire plot in New York. And then there will be a trial of the 4 accused punks, really gangsters, of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Surrey last year. So all of this evidence it's going to hit the fan.
So you're saying something deeply worrying. You're saying the evidence could hit the fan. This is only the beginning. You're saying there will be public trials that will take place in the United States, in Canada. You're giving the Canadian perspective. I have only 15 seconds, Mr. Kanju, but I'll give you those 15.
Look, I have said in my article today that yes, when the matters go to court, because 4 Indians are in Canadian custody and they'll be taken to court, and at that stage, India will have to cross a bridge. I've said that.
Okay.
Of course, when the matters reach the court and evidence is produced in court, thereafter the Indians will have some work cut out. But this sanctimoniousness of human rights and international law, etc., that is the point that I was making, that Western democracies, including Canada and the United States, must introspect.
Let's leave it there. You made that point. You made it strongly. Western democracies should quit the sanctimoniousness, but dare I say, India too is going to have to introspect.